All right, so this is our first video that we have had this year. So just kind of going through a little bit of explanation of what I'm expecting for you for this. If I am writing this down, you need to be writing it down. If I'm writing it in my notebook, you need to be writing it in your notebook. If I'm writing it in the notes packet, you need to find that lesson and you need to go in that lesson and copy down. A couple things for this. On a video, obviously you know that you can pause. If I'm going too fast, go ahead and pause, copy down what I have, and then you can play it again, or you can replay it, or you can just continue on from where you were. If for some reason you missed something, you can always rewind it. You can go back and watch what you missed. If you watch the lesson and you still have some questions, you can rewatch the video. That's the benefit of having this, is that you can look back and see what you have missed. So this first video will start really easy. We're going to be looking in our notebook. We should be on page 17, as long as everything else was glued in correctly. Page 17 is where you're at. We have a little bit that we are going to enter in, and then we will get to our notes packet. So starting off on page 17, please write down for your title, Forms, Standard, Word, Expanded. If you need to, please pause the video at this time so that you can go through and you can write those down, and then continue on with the video once you are ready. With the expanded form, standard form, and word form, we're going to look at our decimals right now. So our standard form, make sure that you label each of these along with what we write. So standard form, my number would be right there. Okay, so for this, I'm going to look at how I would say that, and that would be my word form. That's why I haven't said what that number is yet, because I want us to look at that together. Okay, so looking at this, in front of my decimal, the number that I see here is 152. So that's what I'm going to start by writing. So 152. So if I had taken away and that was the only part of my number, I'd be done with my word form. But because I have a decimal and some numbers after it, I need to continue. Again, as I'm going through, if this is too fast, please pause the video and then resume once you're ready. Our decimal, there is a word that goes along with our decimal. Do you remember last week when I told you don't say that this number would be 152 because and had a certain meaning? This is where that's coming into play. Your and means your decimal point. So when I say 152 and, my and here means a decimal point. Okay? And then from here, I'm looking at what part of my number is left. This is 34. So I'm going to write that down. So far I have 152 and 34, and I need to figure out what my label is here. So what I'm going to do for that is I'm going to look at the number that is to the far right, which is my 4. So from my decimal, I have my tenths place and then my hundredths place. So since my hundredths place is my last digit, that is my label here. So 152 and 34 hundredths. And there is your word form. And we have one left, expanded form. Again, if I'm going too fast, please make sure that you pause, rewind if you need to, go back and figure out what you've missed. So expanded form, there are a couple different ways that we could break this down. Again, if only I had my 152 here, that part's easy. I would break that down to 100 plus 50 plus 2. So that part we have done before. And then looking here with our decimal, we have 3/10. So one way that you could write that would be decimal 3. And if you put that, you could put the 0 in front. That is just fine. That's the same number. And then the next part, this is a part that a lot of people mess up on. They put just decimal 4, but 4 is actually in your hundredths place. So with that, we have to have 2 spots after it because I have my tenths and my hundredths, and my 4 goes here, so then I would put my 0 in between there. So that is one way. Or instead of writing decimal points, you could write a fraction. So my 100 would still stay, so would my 50, so would my 2. And then instead of writing 3/10 as a decimal, you could write 3/10 as a fraction. And instead of writing 4/100 as a decimal, you could write 4/100 as a fraction. So those are a couple ways that you could do your expanded form for your decimal here. Again, if you need to go back and rewatch the video, that's fine. Pause it, rewind, and then go on to your next video when you're done with this. That will go over our lesson.